And we're live.
Hi, Serena. Welcome to our show. So glad to have you here. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Christelle. Thanks, Tim.
Yay.
And, clearly, my advertising the fact we're going to be talking about kangaroos and chicken rearing has succeeded, and we seem to have more viewers than normal at the start of these shows. So that's good. Let's start off with if I had to ask you in 3 words to describe your 3 great strengths as a business person, which 3 words would you use, Serena?
Oh, Tim, that is interesting. I've been in reflective mode at the moment, in that this week has been my birthday week, 6 years in business. And each year I set a word of the year, and I think that one would resonate most strongly, and especially this year. And that word is ownership.
Yeah.
That'd definitely be the first one, ownership. Resourcefulness would be number 2 for me. And flexibility. Yeah. Don't stay on the one path. If you are set in stone in the way you're going to go, then that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
It's been a really, you could easily say this has been a challenging year, but hey, Tim, I would say the entire 6 years, the moment I decided to go into business for myself, has been, well, word I used, if I can throw a 4th one in there, roller coaster.
Yeah.
You have incredible highs and you have the lows, but I really look forward to the highs because I do love riding roller coasters.
Yeah. So let's talk about that roller coaster ride then. I'm basically just trying to get you to introduce yourself in a way that doesn't sound like me asking you to introduce yourself. I
was waiting for Tim.
What level did you start the roller coaster, and what made you get on it in the first place?
I was definitely petrified to get on the roller coaster, absolutely consumed with fear, and probably at my lowest point didn't even see my own value.
Yeah.
But it's a funny thing. Certain moments happen in your life that define you, and I discovered the thing that defined me my entire adult life was my work. I was in the corporate world, and I passionately loved my job and working. And for me, getting off that lifestyle was when I became a parent. And becoming a parent, I was given a moment. I could sum it up like that. A catalyst was my son was 5 months old, and I went into work to negotiate return to work options. And in that moment, I was given an option, pretty much return to work not just 9 to 5, but 5 days a week, on call for the client, average 60 hours a week, or not. And I was told for that level of role, that was it. And I understood. And anyway, within 48 hours, I'd had a conversation with my husband, with my parents, and I had gone from resigning and moving to the suburbs over an hour away to live with my parents with a baby. And that was a catalyst for a lot of things, to figure out where I fit in the world again, because I became an older parent. I'd had been in the workforce for more than 20 years by the time I'd become a parent. And I had to rediscover what I was and how to reapply those skills in a different way. And the week I moved to live with my parents, I got pregnant with my second child. Whoopsie. So I ended up with when I started my business, I had two. The second one was about 9 months old.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to give this a go. And it was me creating a job for myself, using my skills. And I'd been when I left the corporate world, I was a digital account director. So my skill set was getting across at the time, what is social media? Oh, we have to create corporate guidelines for businesses. Or what is a Facebook page? This was before we even had a business purpose for social media, but I was at that cusp of creating it. And when I created my own business, it was how do I apply that skill set? And what I ended up deciding was seeing the skill gap in that there was an abundance of opportunity to help people who were in business, who had large businesses, but weren't at that corporate level. So how could I bring my skill set to them? And that's been my evolution over 6 years. And being a parent and accumulating a menagerie of animals along the way. I mentioned earlier, you may have a 10-week-old puppy on the show at some point.
Yeah. We're expecting it now.
Yeah. I think when I agreed to come on the show today, it's something I'm very passionate about, is that people can create the life they want with what they have available at their fingertips. Literally, they can get their lovely phones and they can use, like, where you're on the it's evening where you are now, right?
Yeah, it's 8:13.
Yes, and it's 12 noon here. Yeah.
Oh, so Christelle, where are you based?
I'm in San Diego. So I'm in San Diego, California. So we're literally all over the world today.
Yeah. We've got the whole world covered support-wise.
And that is what I passionately love. I mentioned just before we came on camera, I met him in San Diego.
Yeah.
And we were traveling from the UK and Australia. This is what I love about technology. This is how I've been able to create my life. Is this, yes, we can be in person, and yes, we can use technology. It's not one or the other. The two enhance each other, and we can have the life we want. I can be in the suburbs of Sydney with, my backyard. My kids are currently asleep, hopefully still. They also might be a cameo. But I can fit all of that around work, and it doesn't impact the capacity and the ability to do what I do.
Yeah.
I wish that for everyone in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How were you able to make that step to go into working for yourself? You said that you can create the life you want, but financially speaking, how were you able to make that step? How did you do it step by step?
Well, at the time, if I go back to when my second son was 5 months old, I was on Facebook, as you do. This was before I started my business, and someone put an ad on Facebook, or the equivalent was a post. They posted on Facebook and said, we need a university student to help with our social media. And I was like, I can do that. And they were 5 minutes from my home where I live now. Okay. And yes, I did move out to my parents' house. I'm not living there anymore. I applied for that job and got it. So that was my first marketing consulting role. And it was part-time on the wage of a university student. And I had my skill set. And I went in there and applied everything I knew. And they were like, what? I built up their Facebook page. I did their email marketing for them, and basically took away, it was all their advertising spend that they put into their traditional print and their advertising they'd done. I said, no, we're pulling that, and I've reduced their advertising spend by about 30%. And and gave them a nearly 40% more revenue.
Mm.
And it was like, and I did a presentation for their sales team. And at the end of that presentation, someone in their sales team said, "Oh, my son needs help setting up his business online. Can you help?" And I went, "Sure." And I went and registered my ABN and basically set up my business. And he became my first client.
Mm.
And it was like, wow. I didn't realize until it was mirrored back at me what it was. And when I said about the 3 words I would say about me in business was this versatility and to see where you can actually own your own skill set.
Mm.
This can be applied elsewhere. I can see how I can adapt to the situation and people will pay for this. And what it does for me is from an integrity point of view as well, I'm actually helping people to create the lives they want. Education is key.
Yeah.
What I see is that people don't see what they have because they're not educated on it.
Mm.
And when you decide to start a business, no one shows you and says, "Oh, this is how digital marketing works."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see that, like, I'm a huge advocate of Social Media Examiner
Yeah.
because they educate. And I got to see,
Mm.
like Stella's now, I think it was, at least I've gone to a few of the San Diego events. It was not this year, the one previous. I said to him that, my goodness, in the early days of when I was an account director in a digital agency, large corporate office, I can remember reading his articles about Facebook and about how to use social media for business.
Mm.
That helped me to develop large corporates. And that education that people need, it is so important, and it's become incredibly important, not less. I send clients there all the time because I'm like, if you're not sure where to start, or if they don't want to work with me one-on-one, that's okay. I'm like, go over here and have a read. You need to understand what you've got available to you, because I hate with a passion seeing people taken advantage of.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to the self-publishing world, the social media marketing things. A lot of less than brilliant people in there. Anyway, I was stealing the question from Christelle. Christelle was actually in the position now of being where you were when you started. She's just starting in her kind of this journey. So I'll let Christelle ask more questions.
I know. Well, yeah, yes, absolutely. And I know a lot of people who are in the position that you were in. What did you say, 6 years ago? Is that when you started?
Yes.
6 years ago. So there's a lot of people in that position now, because in the midst of the worldwide lockdown, we're having to reinvent ourselves, or kind of taking advantage of, okay, we're now at home. We either find a job online or we start our own business. So there's a lot of people now where you are. So your expertise is so valuable right now. What is one thing that you think you learned the most when you were first starting out? What is one lesson for us, those of us who are kind of doing what you are doing now then?
Get really clear on what you want. And I see that you'll see if you go to my Facebook page, so it's Serena.Ryan. I did a post last week, it was on Friday, where I said that it's so important to always surround yourself by people who will challenge you.
Mm.
And don't ever stop asking questions and listening.
Mm-hmm.
I started, and I literally started, and like that's a good thing, okay, because you've got to start somewhere, and don't ever worry about where you start, because your advantage, it's like a superpower, if you can ask questions and keep looking for the people to be surrounded by, then you're okay. You'll be okay. I can say that with certainty from where I came from, because I started and immediately went to local people around me who were in business and got surrounded by them.
Mm.
That was fantastic. A local chamber of commerce is great because that's a resource. So you're always looking for people who are a few steps ahead of you. And to start a business, you've got to be surrounded by people who understand how to start a business and stay in business.
Mm.
That's one type of person. And the other type of person to be around is the person who is a few steps ahead, specifically in the business that you're in or that you want to be in. So I looked for those groups of people, and that is my let my fingers do the walking, memory recall, remembered all those years back, like a decade back, where I had been a part of a digital agency, and the people I looked to for guidance and knowledge, that's what led me to, first of all, do the online summit that was about 10 years ago now, that Social Media Examiner ran, and then saw that they had an in-person event. And then I've somehow got to get myself to that in-person event. And that's not a cheap exercise, but I knew that particular event, if I want the top, the best of the best in the game that I want to be in, that was where I needed to be. So it was looking for that, and I knew that would challenge me. And it became both, not or, being surrounded locally by people and then where I could be aspirationally. And I know at the moment with technology and, I'm not going to say the word, the situation that we have at the moment. Make
The
the
C
most
word.
of the moment. Sorry?
The C word. So.
Yeah. Look, that is a new circumstance.
Yeah.
But what, the challenge that you've got right now, Christelle, and people around us, it's no different to where I was 6 years ago, trying to figure out, based on what I have around me, that I can control, because I can't control the uncontrollable, which is the C word. Yeah. I can't control that, but what I can control is the same as what you can control now.
Yeah.
And for me, it was knowing where was the best of the best that in the area I want to be, and how I get surrounded more by them.
Yes.
And that was how I ended up at that time in a physical location. But now in these circumstances, I'll be looking for the online conferences and the online connecting, networking that you can do. And if anything, I would see there's some amazing opportunities because of that situation as well that you wouldn't normally have, and you wouldn't have to feel like you've got to take out a second mortgage to make it happen, which is how I felt at the time 6 years ago.
Yeah. And a lot of people are starting from nothing. And so,
And that's something I'd say, starting from nothing. I've written blog posts about that. When I said realistically, when I started 6 years ago, in order for me to work, I had to put both my children in childcare. They couldn't even go to school. So after my wage was $30 after paying for childcare. So it wasn't like, oh yay, I was saving up money to start my business. No, that was not it at all. It was a cold hard reality, and my determination to find a better way was to get educated and learn from people who've been there before me, because you may think they haven't at the moment, and I think that's probably what's different now this year, but there's a truckload of people who have been there, and if you can remove the lens of seeing it as, okay, I'm going to say it, but I'm going to use the P word. You can remove the lens of the pandemic and just look at that and say that people before me have had what seemed to be impossible things to get through to be in business every single day. It wasn't just in this past year. So if you can go to people anyone that's been in business more than 5 years has been on that roller coaster, has
Yeah.
looked at it's completely impossible and had huge learnings. And those learnings are the things that you can learn from and feel supported because you're not alone. You may
Mhm.
think I'm the only one doing this. You're not.
Mhm.
I wouldn't hesitate to say, hey, you're now part of my network. If you've got questions, I'm here
Mhm.
because I will talk about this for
Yeah.
hours and not do it in a way, because this is something I learned from one of my mentors. You don't just keep giving your time
Yes.
endlessly. But one of the valuable things a mentor of mine did is I'd go to them with a question and they would give me an action to do.
Mm.
I would always do that. I'd go away and do it and then come back, I did this. And they go, okay, Kate, now do this. Thank
Yeah.
you. Take action rather than like value your time and value their time,
Yes.
because you will not move anywhere by endless advice.
Mm.
Yeah.
Advice with action.
Mhm. I
Me,
love how. Oh, go ahead.
I'd say for me that incredibly powerful. If you would say to me why I'm still in business now, is because it's the action I take. I've made a truckload of mistakes along the way. I'm okay with that because I've learnt along the way, and I can't say I haven't repeated mistakes because inevitably I have,
Yeah, everybody does.
but I've avoided, I've minimized them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said valuing time. That's such a key word, I think, in this season is valuing. Something I've learned in this season is not only valuing other people's time, but my time is valuable too. And that's such a new concept for me because in the past I thought, you know what, time is freely given, and that's not valuing yourself. And that's allowing people to take advantage of you constantly. And so I love that you touched upon that. Can you tell us possibly one of your biggest lessons, whether it was the mistake that you just kept going and were propelled forward, or one of your biggest lessons in starting, hi, Amy,
Yeah.
in starting your business?
The ability to say no.
Mm,
Yeah.
Not everyone's my client,
mm,
and I can wish them well and send them on their way. And the most valuable thing I've ever done is a learning from one of my mentors, Dennis Yu, is to publish lots of free resources.
Hmm.
So if someone comes to me and they don't have the budget, that's okay. Here's some free resources. Go do it yourself. Like what you're paying for when you work with me is me dedicated, and
mm,
people will pay a premium for me. And that's okay. And that's good. That's what keeps me in business. But I want to help everyone. So that's why I have free resources and I will give them to people who don't. One of my most incredible clients I've worked with now for over 2 years, it was 9 months before she became a client. And what I
mhm,
said to you before, she would come to me. She found out how much it costs for a power hour, which is what I do initially to audit someone's circumstances. And she goes, I can't afford that. That's okay. And I gave her a free $1 a day course to learn Facebook ads. And then she came back to me again and said, oh, thank you so much. And then she told me what she'd learned. I'm like, okay, cool. And she goes, I'm still not quite there. I'm like, that's okay. She goes, look, I really want to understand Google ads. So I'm like, well, go off and Google Garage is a great resource. It wasn't something that was mine, but I like to find free resources and hand them
Yeah.
over. I don't hesitate because it's like, well, it's not me, but this is it. She's like, okay. She came back, oh, that was intense. I'm like, it's okay. What else is it? Is there anything else I can help you with? She says, no, I'm applying what you've taught me so far and I'll come back to you.
mm,
And she'd come back and we'd just check in with each other, but it took her 9 months before she became a client. She's now been a client for 2 years. And what I've learned is I have a criteria that I stick to on what best suits my circumstances, and that also my strengths, skill sets, what I enjoy. That enables me to be able to see if someone's the right fit or not. And
mm,
that is actually working in my favour and their favour. Something that resonates in my head is the day I got married, my best friend did a speech, and she said in that speech, Serena's always saying, you can always, everyone's good people, but about a relationship is when two good people come together and make each other great.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I was like, for me now, that's me and my husband, right? Well, that's cool, right? Because that's who we are, and that was my learning. I was determined I wasn't going to be with anyone who wouldn't make me a great person, but I would make them great too.
Yeah.
That lives with me in my business model now. And that, for me, the first 3 years of my business was me figuring that out. That I realized that my personal values are my business values, and aligning the two of them, because that has now set me up for business sustainability and also for an easier home life too. Because I don't know if you ever realize, I did in the corporate world, I would have to work with clients, and some of them didn't align with me and my values.
Yeah.
And that also put a strain on when I would come home and have to decompress from working. And you don't realize how that impacts your whole life. And the value you have now in this scary unknown of setting up a business, Christelle, is you have also a wonderful opportunity to have a better life by having that alignment between who you work with and who has this value exchange with you. You end up with a much better quality of life, even though I know it can be quite scary. It's a fun thing, but I'll still say I still struggle, and always, I don't see a day yet where this saying no to someone still feels very against my grain, because I want to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People.
We value our yes by learning to say no to what we need to say no to. And that's such a powerful statement, not only in business, but just for life.
Yeah. Sometimes saying yes to the wrong person means that you're depriving somebody else of that yes, who actually it would be more in line with that. Which is where having a network's good as well, because you can refer people to other people.
You're exactly right. I had that 2 weeks ago now. I had a client come to me, and they already we did a power hour together. I audited their circumstances. They were ready. They came back to me and they wanted to have a 6-month contract with me, and they wanted to pay up front. And that would be a healthy injection of income into my company. And I said no, because I looked at them and their circumstance. I'd done the power hour with them, and I actually saw that they weren't ready to work with me, even though they wanted to.
Yeah.
And I referred them to someone else that I know. And I said, look, they're a better fit. And I think that you guys can do great things together. And I'll check in with you in 3 months and see how it's going, because I want to make sure you're taken care of. But I've known them since I started 6 years ago, and I've known them. And I've seen their work, and I've actually used their services. Because you're right, when I refer, I like to be a matchmaker. I want to make sure that I'm setting them up in the best way possible. Yeah, so it was quite a liberating thing to do. I've never actually said no to such a contract of that size before, but it was like I just knew it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to change the subject because that's my want. But we've both kind of been into a lot of social media marketing and other conferences and things other years. What do you personally see? Because I know you've done a lot of Facebook advertising, Google advertising, all the rest of it. But what do you see at the moment are the trends of the things that are working in social media from a business perspective? It's a little bit of a boring question, but I was just interested.
Look, from what I see what works with my clients, and
Yeah.
I see that Facebook ads are still they're doing great.
Mm.
That it's more important than ever to line up who is your ideal customer and connect with them, and have it as a stop trying to advertise to people.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is working is when people have got people in their ads, it's always a big thing when you're introducing to a cold audience.
Yeah.
People want to see the real deal and
Mm.
build that relationship that way. So one of the things I specialize in is doing Facebook ads and specifically video ads to build up those warm funnels. And so, yes, that is using a lot of business terms, I know.
Yeah.
Going from, business experience. But if you ask me what I see working, I see ads or videos that don't look like videos.
Mm.
Advertising, as in get to meet someone, get to hear their story, connect with them on a personal level, and then you've got a better opportunity to introduce your product
Mm.
after they've watched that video and gone into a custom audience. But if you're trying to push anything too polished, then you're driving up your ad costs unnecessarily.
Mm.
So so every now and then I'll work with a client that they'll go, they want to test the more polished, and it's the ones who actually have just picked up their phone and done a video without worrying too much about the bells and whistles. They're still performing better.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to me because a lot of companies want to, like you said, hire and polish and perfectly edit their videos, whereas you're saying just tell the story, just connect with your audience literally by picking up your phone. And so story matters.
Story matters. Always. Always. I think that's something that resonates. People love stories. There's a reason why there's a multi-billion-dollar industry in movies. And you hear one of I listened to Social Media Examiner's podcast, going back a while now, but I can remember talking about the power of story and the hero in the story. And an iconic movie I think of, and there's truckloads of them out there.
Yeah.
That becomes one of my favourite sayings at the moment, truckloads. I don't know why I picked that up. Anyway, I digress. The Star Wars and Skywalker, the hero. And people love to hear and see the hero in a movie and connect. What people love from a psychology point of view is when they can put themselves into the shoes of the hero. And what it is people watch their stories and they go, that's like me. Yeah. And that's an alignment of values. When you have that alignment of values, someone is more interested. They will emotively be pulled more into why they would need that product or service. And it's not from a place other than I love seeing an alignment of values rather than just going, well, we have to sell more widgets. It's like that's not what it's about. I genuinely believe there are so many people out there who can help others with their gift, whether that be a physical product or service. And this is a way to use it that aligns those things. Of course, they need it in that way. And I definitely see the power of it's why I still work in marketing is when I can work with people to have that alignment. So it's interesting. If I'm going more into the tactics of where we go from that story to what's working, I see high visibility with Reels and Instagram. I see, and the value of that is you can do Reels when you go into the ads manager because you manage your Instagram business through Facebook Business Manager, which has now become Business Suite. In the Business Suite, you can create custom audiences of people who have viewed your Reels.
Oh, okay.
So you can remarket to those
Yeah.
audiences. And naturally, if you can look for what is the thing that is being promoted as the new release by Instagram or Facebook, that new release will naturally get more visibility because they want people using it more. So look for
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I've got a new video of what's new on Instagram. What is it? Okay, it's a reel. You
Yeah.
better start doing reels. And
Yeah.
you'll get more visibility organically before you do paid. And then you can create those custom audiences of people who are viewing the reels, and you can remarket to them on Facebook and Instagram, because people may not be on Facebook as much now, but they still are. And chances are, if they're not sitting there, they'll be on Instagram. So you can leverage those two opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, I've just got LinkedIn stories today, so I was thinking I might
Oh.
do that. Yeah,
Wow.
they've been in the US for a while. I'm not sure it's got to Australia yet.
It
But
still has. I've had it for a while, and I'd say I haven't
Yeah.
used it as much. But it's not to say it's not working. If anything, I see that it's an interesting one when you see that the technology has been started on a different platform, and then that it gets replicated on others.
Yeah.
I'm still only seeing, I don't know, I think Instagram's the one who seems to have been able to successfully do it, but I haven't seen it work as well on other
Well,
platforms. The replication
yeah.
of other
My
platforms.
my problem with stories is that people post the same stuff on Instagram, Facebook, and now I've seen just people with the same stories on LinkedIn stories. And it's like, well, they're all very different platforms. I mean, Instagram is very, very different platform from LinkedIn. And it's like, if I do stories, which I probably will, I'm going to do it purely focused on like business related stuff, because that's what LinkedIn's about. I'm not going to be doing pictures of me walking in the forest like I do on Instagram. So it's, I mean, I've always, like, even on Facebook, I do different stories to Instagram, and I think I'm about the only person in the world who does that. But people like all of the things. I was going to ask a question about Australia
Oh, yeah.
from a business perspective. I mean, what do you think are the disadvantages of being based in Australia from a social media or online business point of view? And what are the advantages, in your opinion? Obviously, probably not been anywhere else to compare, but there could be things that come to mind when being based in Australia in terms of how online business is there, so to speak.
It's an interesting one. There's probably the key difference this year for me is prior to this year, I felt it was important to be traveling overseas to build relationships. And I'm glad I did it for a number of years.
Yeah.
So basically from year 3 of my business, so the last, well, including year 3, so for 4 years, I've been traveling to America and Canada. And that has been a catalyst for me to build relationships and build my business. Because I'm quite niche in what I do, what I've found in Australia, it is not, it's definitely been a challenge to build the business here.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that people weren't as receptive to consider the online package that I do offer. So that was probably the challenge from the population, and it was a mindset. So if you think from a cultural point of view in Australia, one, smaller population, but also in Australia, they're like, oh, we don't really need that because we're getting all our business in person, or it's not as important. So I felt that I needed to twofold build my education around how to better market myself and also understand the market better. And I found that if I traveled to America and Canada, there were a lot more people there who were more receptive from a mindset point of view of what I could do. So the biggest challenge in Australia was that. Now, what's happened this year for me is noticing a lot more people who had seen my advertising, who had been interested in Australia, have all been reaching out, going, oh, we need to do this. And people I
Yeah.
had been in contact with before who weren't interested but were curious because they'd seen my advertising, suddenly have gone, oh, now we need to do it. So locally, I've been inundated by a lot more people. I've had to say no a lot more. And I've also had to say yes a lot more, which has been great. But that challenge of saying no is challenging. But I've found in Australia what it has been is this awakening of going, oh my goodness, now I understand how important and how amazing it is. We could go from working crazy hours to having a better balanced lifestyle if we understand and use technology better.
Yeah.
So it's been a very, from a business point of view, very interesting year to actually see that awakening. And it's come from all kinds of people just suddenly reaching out. Okay, great. How can I help you?
Yeah.
They mean referring as well. Yeah, so from a lifestyle point of view, I'm grateful for my backyard. I'm incredibly grateful for it, particularly when we had, like, I'm thankful I'm in Sydney because other people in Australia have had it harder, definitely, and still are. So I can move around a bit here. I do have a mask when I go out, so that's a reality. But I'm so grateful for my backyard. I'm grateful to have the lifestyle I have where I live. It's yeah, I'm naturally biased. I love living in Australia. But I look at the same time I love traveling too. So I'm missing that.
I am too. I think we actually all three of us probably are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been trying to travel to all 50 US states, and obviously that's getting a bit difficult at the moment.
Absolutely.
I was going to grab the next question for Christelle. I'll give Christelle a chance to ask some. But when I started social media, learning about social media marketing and business in the UK, UK was quite a way behind. I went to UK conferences and like we're kind of like what they were teaching were like 2 or 3 years behind what you find in social media marketing world. But now the gap has narrowed to probably like, well, virtually the same or 6 months difference, maybe the most. What's the situation in Australia like with sort of conferences and sort of Australian teachers of social media and the rest of it? Is it kind of like very up to date, or are there still a lot of people teaching stuff that was like worked in 2016, which used to be the case in the UK a lot? You know what I mean?
I think it's the same what you just described. When I started, I definitely saw the gap. Like 6, even like I've been in the digital marketing space for a long time now. I've lost count of the years. 2000, coming up to 18 years now, and just a few. And that's digital specific. It was marketing before that, but in the digital space, like 6 years ago, I found like there wasn't any. I went for my knowledge to the US. On it, like locally, and even if I went back to when I found my first social media conference I wanted to attend, I looked in Australia before I went to go to San Diego. And I couldn't find the equivalent in Australia. There just wasn't. And I think it's population based at the time as well, because there would be niche in one area, but not an ability to cover all. So while I'd get maybe 1 or 2 speakers from social media marketing world coming to Australia, which is fantastic, it would cover one area. Whereas I felt the concentration and the ability to access that variety of knowledge, that was why I'd go to San Diego, and why I was like, that's it, that's what I'll invest in for my knowledge. Because what I found personally, and this comes back to business sustainability and the ability to be surrounded by people who challenge you, I was looking for not just what would be good, but what would really be amazing. And for me, I needed something that would help my business sustainability for me. And that's why I said, that's it. I'm going there. And when I'd experienced it for the first year, I went, that this is something to put in my calendar regularly, because it wasn't even so much being able to attend the sessions. It comes back to fundamentally being surrounded by the people who could challenge me.
Yeah.
I'm looking to be challenged. Your power, your superpower in this nature of business is the ability to have a strong network, and it's the ability to have an active network, not just, oh, hey, I've been surrounded. Like, a selfie is like the equivalent of a handshake. It's powerful, but it'll only get you so far. It's the ability to have beyond the selfie and continue that active relationship, and give to that network, and as much as you receive. In fact, I like to tip it the other way. I want to give more than I receive.
Yeah.
And when you do that, that is when I talk about business sustainability, comes from that. Like, my thirst for knowledge and being able to learn. Like, this year, I'll talk about, Social Media Examiner. They've been doing a series of online events, and 2 or 3 weeks ago, beginning of this month, they had a YouTube summit.
Yeah.
And I did the YouTube summit as a learner, because I'm like, this is not an area I've spent a lot of time in, because the digital space is so vast and deep.
Mm.
And this is a space I've never fully focused on, and it was mind-blowing and exciting. I dedicate part of my week every single week to my ongoing learning, and that keeps me in business. I think if anyone wants to stay in business, I'd say this to you, Christelle, like, don't think, okay, I've started a business now, that you're not a learner. If anything, the learning becomes more important, which is why the quality of client becomes important, and the quality of, like, your income, to allow you the space to dedicate to your learning every single week.
That's brilliant. Tim, did you have a follow-up question? I see you.
No, I have got a question, but I'll let you ask, because it's a silly one. So I'll let you ask him.
Okay, so you'll ask the silly one. I saw you hesitating. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's a running joke on this show that I keep using the example of Christelle starting a llama farm.
Yeah, this is where the llama farm came from, Serena. There was a reason I was joking about.
As you might have seen in the comments, but like, if Christelle was genuinely going to start a llama farm, what kind of digital strategy would you say? So I was saying that the reason I like the whole llama farm thing, I don't know if this is like, I don't think I don't think you'd be selling them for people to eat the llamas. It would have to be more like you get people in paid $10.
I'm doing events. We're doing events on the llama farm is probably what we're doing.
So what kind of digital strategy, if Christelle was able to afford your fees and the rest of it, would you be suggesting for her to try and promote her hypothetical llama farm?
Okay, I want to hear where we would start is, we need to actually understand what is your reason and purpose of why you would actually be starting the llama farm. Because if you're going to get visitors to your events, they need to connect with you. And it's the llamas spit. They're not a very nice animal. So you need to win over the people more than the llamas. You need to keep the llamas at a distance. Do you know they're kept on? Do you know much about them, as in from a personality point of view? And I'll let you in on why. One of my favorite books, unfortunately, I've loaned it out, is called The Barefoot Investor.
Yeah.
And in the opening, have you read it, Tim?
No.
Okay.
I'm always on looking at the new books, though, so it sounds like a good one.
Okay. Well, I'll find you a copy and send you one. Make sure you send me your address so I can do that. The Barefoot Investor is a book on personal finance. And he opens his book, and this is what we talk about, storytelling. He opens the book on his farm. It's a 5-acre farm just outside of Melbourne. And he has llamas. And people keep them. They're the equivalent of like protection for protection. They're like a dog that will
Security.
protect. They're territorial, so that
Yeah.
you can actually have them on your farm to protect, and they spit. So they're not very graceful. They'll spit in your face.
Mm.
So that's how I discovered a bit more about them as animals. They're not really the nicest personality-wise, but they look good from a distance. I know you mentioned, Tim, finance is something that I'm pretty passionate about, and that is strongly connected to my business sustainability. When you understand your what drives you and how much money you need to sustain the lifestyle you want to have, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been a lived experience. And reading copious amounts of books on personal finance and understanding that, and then that translates to my business finance and why I get very passionate about people and their financial circumstances in their business. I hate them wasting money. So when anyone comes to work with me, it's an awakening of understanding what's driving you financially and how we can then achieve those goals together with digital marketing. So if it comes back to you now have your llama farm with your very temperamental llamas, I would be looking at what is your uniqueness of how you would run those events, and that's what we need to amplify. And the most cost-effective way is to bring your personality into it and what drives you and why you have that farm. And you might actually have some nice llamas who don't spit, and that might be your competitive advantage, and we amplify that on social media.
Well, I think you could have screens now because of COVID. So
It's not get creative here.
Yeah, maybe that's it too. So it's like, how do we? I'm always looking when anyone I work with is what are the objections? So why would someone not use your product or service? How do we overcome that? And then we amplify that out into the market.
Okay.
There's definitely opportunities for this llama farm. We've just got to work out what they are.
Yeah. So businesses are listening to this interview and our discussion. What can they glean from you? What services do you offer? I know we just went over the llama farm, but specifically to businesses who might be listening, what do you offer?
The best thing that where anyone should start if they want to consider working with me is I need to understand their circumstances, and what we've discussed already today. This is an alignment of who we are working together. I can't help someone if they're not clear on what they want to achieve. The way I get to know what they want to achieve is I have a set of questions to understand their goals, content they already have access to, and what audiences they're targeting. They don't need to have all of that perfect right now. Typically they don't, because they want to work with me. Because if your goals, content, and targeting, when they're connected and aligned beautifully, like you've got content resonating with your ideal audience, with your business goal, that means you're growing your business successfully. When that's broken, then they need help. So I get everyone to complete a set of questions on their goals, content, and targeting, and they book in for a power hour, which is like a taster. They get to understand how I work, and I do a full audit of their business based on their answers to those questions. And then they've got the choice. I give them options on packages to work with me, or they take what they get in that power hour and they go and work with someone else, or they implement that themselves. Because that power hour is not a get to know you session. That's a review of their business with actions of what they can take to improve their circumstances based on their business goals and their content they have access to and their audiences they're wishing to target. And I have that happen. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, someone did a power hour, and based on the audit I did, I actually sent them to work with someone else. That's exactly how I work. So I can give you a link. It's actually serena.ryan.com is my website, and it's /GCT. standing for goals, content, targeting. They fill out those questions and we take it from there. And that's pretty much how everyone comes through to work with me.
Beautiful. And we're going to put that up. We're going to put your link up. Where else can our audience find you? Since you gave us the link, where else can we find you? Is that the best place to find you? Do you want us looking elsewhere, Instagram or LinkedIn?
You find me on Instagram, you'll find me on Twitter, you'll find me on LinkedIn, all as Serena.Ryan. And the dot stands for Dorothy. That's my middle name. And I can also very cheesily say that my middle name is digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't know that when they named me after my great grandmother.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Hmm.
Tim, do you want to ask a final question, or would you like me to?
No, I was just going to say that I've, because I love QR codes, I have put a link to the top level of Serena's website, not the GCT one up in the comments. But if anybody is watching this on the television, on YouTube, or on some sort of other device, they can just hold up their phone and scan it, and it'll take it to Serena's website. So
I love that you do that, Tim.
I don't know if it works at all, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's like I watch so much stuff on like YouTube on television and like things like that, and often you can't get to the comments and you can't get to the things. So it's just another way of people doing it.
Tim is constantly learning. Speaking of constantly evolving and learning, Tim is constantly bringing new things and trying it out. I love that. Serena, can you leave our audience, for the final question, can you leave our audience with just one piece of life advice that you kind of hold true to yourself?
Define what is enough for you and go after it.
Define what is enough for you and go after it. Yeah.
I could easily be running a bigger business than I do, understanding the tools that I have, but that I've learned the hard way is not what makes me happy. It comes back to what we said before, Christelle, and the ability to say no. There is so much joy. I can quote something that I've seen a number of people say about the joy of missing out. Molly Mahoney is the first person I heard say it. And there is so much joy in missing out. The ability to say no is so powerful, just as much as the ability to say yes. Like where I've got to now, 6 years of being in business, has been because I've got clear on what it is I really want in my life. And I protect it. So the puppy didn't make an entrance today. I might put a photo in the comments so you get to see. If you talk about what goes in my stories, at the moment I'm teaching Wicket, that's the puppy, how to play fetch, and the ball is bigger than her.
Yeah. Well, post a picture of the puppy in the comments. And,
there you go.
It was great having you on the show. You ever got any further questions or final things to say, Christelle or Serena?
I don't. I loved this discussion, chatter immensely. I love the power of story. I love your advice. Just it felt like treasure all around. So thank you, Serena, for being here and chatting with us.
I think you need to abandon the llama farm idea.
I didn't want to kill it off completely. I'm sure there are positives about them. They are a beautiful animal. Like my experience so far. Oh, yeah, because I've had a personal experience. We talk about llamas. My son's been spat on by a llama, but so yeah, it's not just that I've read it in a book. I've witnessed it too, and they're not necessarily.
They're not the best. Tim, you still need to make the mug, though. I advocate for that. Tim, Sohn, Amy, thank you for joining us today. They said hi, Serena, in the comments. And thank you, audience, for watching. Hopefully you've gleaned as much as we have. Serena, stay in touch, please. I've so enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks so much for the stuff. Thanks, Tim.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
It's just cliche shit, you know?